We're here to talk about restoration, but I'm going to give you the story of restoration of Dawn. I apologize, negligent in communicating on Facebook and CareBridge and everything on what has been happening in our lives. And some of you know last November he was in a moto accident. He and another moto were coming at each other at a great deal of speed. And the other guy was hauling a metal cart that hit a bump that swung out and hit him in the knee and sent him going over tea kettle. And he had an open fracture of his knee. And he was in the hospital, I think he was 5 days. But then we also found out that we didn't know if it was caused by the accident or after, if he had it before. He had been training for a marathon, and I thought he was in wonderful health. But we found out he had AFib, where the heart beats irregular. And so maybe it was aggravated because about a week after that, we flew home to America to get better treatment for him. And we left before we got Humpty Dumpty put together again, which probably wasn't such a good idea. But a week before we were coming back, he was in another accident, but this time he was hit deliberately. But we were scheduled to be home in a week. So we've been here, and he's been starting his PT up again with his knee, and he had a stress test yesterday, and we don't know the results of that yet, so maybe tomorrow we'll have that. But he should get his heart corrected, but I'm determined to keep him here till I get him healthy, and then we're going back. So, as Clay says, the rescues are just so essential, but also essential is the restoration of these girls for them to know who they are in Christ and realize that great plan that God had for them. Because sometimes the work is so heavy and so difficult, but we have hundreds, literally hundreds of miracle stories of girls restored. And I want to tell you one of the girls who was in our first 24 that came. We had a 5-year plan that we thought it'd take us 5 years to get 24 girls, and we had that within 3 months of opening. And this girl, she was sold by her mom, and she came in so meek and shy and quiet and reserved. But she found out who she was in Christ, and God had a better plan for her. And she was one of our first to go graduate from our school on campus and go to a private Methodist school. And she wanted to be a teacher. And she is now working in our school in Swipe-Hawk. She's going to our teacher's training program, and she's teaching kids there about good touch, bad touch. She's teaching them how to read and math, but also she has married the manager of the Lord's Gym, and she's pregnant. And when we were home after Don's first motorcycle accident about Christmas time, she wrote and said, "Oh, Mommy, I am so grateful for the life that God has given me. And you know I'm pregnant, but now I have a big surprise, Mommy. I'm pregnant with twins." That's 2.
2 girls, by the way.
Yes.
I'm just checking. I preached this weekend. If I have enough time, I thought I'd just use that same sermon. I want to share one more story with you about restoration. As Bridget said, the rescues without the restoration really end up being meaningless in the long run. And we're blessed that we have been able to be the part of the lives of heroes, right? And that's who these girls become. They become heroes. And one of ours is a young lady named Toha. And Toha she was trafficked by her mom. Her mom sold her virginity first. And that's a lot of money they get for that. A man from China, came to purchase her virginity. After that, her mother decided she would sell her to a brothel, but not one close by, one that she'd be out of sight. And she sold her to this brothel, and after 20 days, she called us and asked, "Please come rescue me." Now, this is before we had a SWAT team and were really able to respond like we wanted to. And we went through another NGO and the police, and as Clay had talked about, it ended up being tipped off. And she ended up calling and saying, "Hey, they've moved us to a new house. I'm locked behind a door, and I don't know where I am." And the story went on, Toha, and she's so quiet until she needs to speak up. Then she does great. And she was in this room, and the brothel owner came in, and he said to her, "You're not going anywhere. I own the police, and I own you." And Toha so bravely said, I'm not worried because AIM is going to get me. And that was brave, but we really had no way to get her, right? That was a brave thing to say. And it's just amazing how God works, because his response to her, well, if they're coming, you can go. And he unlocks the door and lets her out. So now she's back, right? And she's going to testify in court, and I, as one of her guardians, am going to testify as well. And this is a tough part of the story, but we need to know it. She was there 22 days. And 22 days doesn't seem like a very long time, does it? I mean, some girls are trafficked for months and years, and this girl was just 22 days. But here's the hard truth. In 22 days, she was raped 198 times. And what we learned from that is, and it's really become a part of our heart, is one girl is too many, one day is too long. And so we have this sense of urgency that Clay spoke about for these girls. That's the urgency part, but there's the hope part as well. You see, Toha not only was brave in front of the brothel owner, she's been to court 3 times to testify. She testified against that brothel owner, convicted, in prison. She testified against a mid-level low-level trafficker, convicted. Testified against a middle-level trafficker, where we're really starting to make some progress, convicted. All 3 times she stood bravely in front of the court, as close to the perpetrator as I am to you right now. So brave, so bold, as God worked in her heart. And as she became discipled, she became closer and closer to the Lord, and she decided, first of all, she was going to work making bracelets in our employment center. These are Toha originals that I'm wearing that I'd be glad to sell for $1,000 afterwards. Actually, I wouldn't sell them for $1,000. But more than that, she works all day, she goes to school at night, and she's studying to be a counselor so she can help other girls. You see, that's what God can do in a child's life who has been terribly abused, something beyond what we can imagine. And it's truly the love of God coming through her counselors, her house moms, the wonderful Kamai staff that we have. And that type of restoration brings heroes like Toha.